Hello everybody, my name is Christian Swenson. I make videos here on YouTube about autism, autistic consciousness, and life on the autism spectrum. And when I was a kid, I liked to hide in very small spaces. Have you ever done that before? Maybe when you were very, very much smaller than you probably are now. I don't know, maybe some of you are smaller than I am. But, you know, there was this thing that it was in something called an entertainment center that was in my parents' house when I was very young. There was this little cupboard in the corner. I'd love to crawl inside it. I'd love to see if I could squeeze myself and just wrap myself around myself entirely within that thing. I used to do this, or at least I thought I did this. I'm not sure, with a bread cupboard on the kitchen counter. I thought I did that. I don't know if the physics are logistically possible there or the math. I did this with all sorts of things. I had lots of places that I would squeeze inside. I was like a cat. I love boxes. I love squeezing inside little things. I ended up writing a play about autism called The Box that partially, maybe subconsciously, had this phenomenon in mind. And it got me thinking about that, because this is not the only place I've seen this. I've seen this in other accounts of autism. There's another relatively well-known autistic YouTuber. She describes in her video about 10 things about autism, weird things about me as a child, that she would hide in like a wardrobe and wait to see how long it would take for the adults to find her. There's this place I found on the internet of this dad who describes his son, who would like make a nest of clothes in a closet, and he said the most beautiful thing. He said, "I like feeling enclosed by small spaces because I don't like feeling enclosed by people." Now, there's a video about that. I talked about that with my video about pressure and temperature. I talked about social and physical pressure. But Temple Grandin also did this. She designed something called a hug machine. I'll kind of point to it. I'll point to it right here. Her hug machine. I'm going to put a little image. And it would basically be a machine that would give her pressure, as much pressure as she wanted. She would be able to adjust it with a kind of lever or pulley. And it makes me think there is something about autism and small spaces. And it makes me wonder why. It makes me think about the ways life is so unpredictable. The world moves in ways that I don't. It often moves in ways I can't predict. There are often times when things move, and it actually makes me angry to see them move in a certain way. It's super weird. But it makes me realize that that's really what separates inside from outside. Is this thing moves in one way, and the other things move in another way. I am, in many ways, a kind of movement. You know, the word emotion, emotion, ex movere, right? What about feeling? You know, it's inside to outside. All of those words kind of imply that we are a kind of moving thing, and the world outside is a different, or many kinds of different moving things. And so for me to feel like I'm moving in a certain way, in a contained, coherent, integrated way, versus the outside world's movement, is maybe a guarantee and a requirement for stability. Now, that's hard for us as autistic people, I'd say, because at least from my experience, reading people like Donna Williams, talking to others, reading your YouTube channel, reading other books, I get the impression that there's a sense in which the self and the other in autistic minds and bodies are blurred. The foreground and the background are blurred. There's a sense in which the hemispheres of the brain are blurred. Everything's blurred. It's kind of like a bramble, or just a kind of a big mess in many ways. And everything's kind of blurred together with everything, kind of like the neural connections in the brain are kind of that way in autistic brains. And it becomes difficult because if the outside world moves, then I begin to move with it, or I actually don't, but I feel like I am, and the fact that it's moving and I'm not is really jarring, and in many ways the experience of autism is jarring. It's always forgetting yourself, always trying to remember yourself, but then forgetting yourself again. It's like, oh, this is me, this is me, this is me in the mirror, oh, this is you, this is you. My categories don't match onto the world. Everything's always slipping out of its categories. I tend to always feel lost. And so these small spaces are a radical solution to that problem. Instead of having lots of boxes for many different things, just one box for the thing that is me and the thing that is everything else. I am the world. I am everything. Nothing moves at all. Just stays in place. Me and everything else. No movement, no self, no other, just being. Donna Williams talks about that, and she talks about that in her book, Autism and Sensing. She talks about it in her book, Exposure Anxiety. The state of no self, no other, a state of just being. It's kind of like, what would reality be if reality were just a point? A zero-dimensional universe. They kind of describe that in Flatland. All you would say is, I am the universe, I am myself, I am all. In Flatland they said that and they were making fun of the mystics of the day, but I think there's a sense in which that's what I want. I want to be all. I want to be nothing. I want to be everything or nothing, just as long as we don't have this jarring mismatch between inside and outside where things are pulling me apart. And it gets kind of difficult because you can't really do that, can you? I mean, we can withdraw into our cupboards. We can't do it for very long. It's kind of like Homer Simpson. He's like, I'm going to be snug in his bed forever. And then he needs to go to the bathroom. It doesn't really work. But there are things we can do. What we can do is, and this is maybe a radical solution, is try to picture ourselves from the outside, as if we were a stranger to ourselves. Because what that does is it uses our imagination, our imaging capacity, to give ourselves an imaginal container, an imaginal space, the imaginal space of our bodies. You see it. You see the imagination around you when you're looking at it from outside. The looking at it from outside is the container. The outside is the container. You see what I mean? I don't know if that makes any sense. It's like when you look at yourself in a mirror in the mall and you don't see who it is. Oh, it's me. That moment before you recognize it, that's what I'm talking about. What if we were to see ourselves like that? What if we were to have that kind of buffer between ourselves and ourselves be a kind of container? This is a very abstract idea, but in another way it's not. It's the most concrete thing. It's very elemental, very primal. But it's something to chew on, something to mull over, something to digest. Another thing that it makes me wonder could be invented is a version of Temple Grandin's hug machine. It's really just a kind of intelligent corset. A corset whose tension could respond to a person's level of anxiety as a kind of biofeedback. Like a corset that's maybe measuring your heart rate and like getting tighter when you need more tightness and looser when you need more looseness. Because everybody's like that. We're always regulating the tension of inside and outside. I just think it's a little bit harder for autistic people. We want more pressure and then we want radically less pressure. Well, what if the corset were to do that? What if the corset, which we would just wear and someone would design, would give us the feeling of being ourselves, of being contained and snuggled and nurtured? Wouldn't that be great? I'd love that personally. Donna Williams couldn't really often get herself to the state of self and other. And maybe we're never going to get there. I don't know. But maybe what we could do is we could have self, and then other, and then self, and then other, and then maybe eventually we could learn through a kind of synesthesia to have the experience, that kind of tunnel of me and you together in some way. Again, something to mull over. My name is Christian Swenson. Talk to you guys later. Take care.